welcome back to my channel and welcome to my very first Easter 2023 video, and we're making a rabbit. Who does not love a rabbit? But this is not just any rabbit. We are actually creating one using a mold I made not long ago from this Poundland rabbit. I'll link the video here if you missed it, but we are going with a bunny with bunny tails, because how cute is that? If you saw a recent video, you would have seen me use some bunny tails in some resin, and I knew how cute would it be to create a bunny with bunny tails inside of it. Anyway, we are going to go for it, and like I said, if you missed that video of how I made this mold, it will be linked on screen at the end or in the description box. First up, we are mixing our resin. Now for this, I'm going to need a deep pour resin. I'm using Vista Ocean. Here's the thing, this isn't their deepest resin. I should have probably used something deeper. Vista Ocean, I think, can go to about 2 or 3 inches, so it's not the most ideal, but I don't have any other deep pour resin. Next up, we're going to cut our bunny tails. Now, I actually got these from Amazon, so if I can find them again, I will link them below. They are soft and fluffy and so beautiful. And like I mentioned in the last video, I actually ordered something from an artist over on Instagram. I ordered some macrame plant hangers, and she put little bunny tails in her packaging. So I messaged her and I was like, what are they? I need those. They would be gorgeous in resin. So the first thing I'm doing is just putting them into a bunch, kind of getting an idea on the depth of my rabbit mold and how deep I know these are going to go, kind of what I want them to look like inside. Once I was happy with the bunch, I actually sellotaped all of the stalks together. This is just going to give me a really handy handle, I guess. It's going to give me something to hold onto and grip onto when I'm putting them down into my mold. Now, I do have this mold on my heat mat. My biggest concern, which did become a reality with this mold, my biggest concern for this mold is that it's super chunky and the walls are really thick around the rabbit. So yeah, I was worried about the heat, not having enough heat in there to disperse air bubbles. I am not very good at deep pours. I will put my hands up and tell you I do not have a pressure pot. If I did have a pressure pot, the results of this would have been 1,000 times better, but we roll. That is what the kids say, isn't it? We roll. So yeah, I've just poured some resin kind of 2/3 of the way up, and I rested my bunny tails in my jug of resin just to get them fully coated. Now, I could have left it sitting in the resin for a good 20 minutes or so. I left it for around about 5. I just wanted the resin to coat the bunny tails, get right in there, and try and get rid of as many air bubbles as possible. What I didn't want was a complete explosion of air within the bunny itself, in the stomach area of the rabbit. So next up, I'm just filling up the rest of my mold with my resin, and it was at this point I realized I would need to add tape to hold these bunny tails down in place. I've already taped the outside of my mold because it is a split mold. If you saw that video, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I've just wrapped tape around to hold it together. This is the split all the way down the side. And you just want to kind of hold your mold in place so that the resin doesn't find that gap and seep out. Luckily for me, it didn't, and it hasn't. This is the second time using the mold. So yes, take the tape off. This is 3 days later. So this resin is a 48-hour cure. However, I did leave it for 3 days and it's time to demold. First glance, looking down into the belly, it looks really clear. I can't see a bubble explosion. I was really happy at this point. But what did happen, which is similar to what happened back in January where I used this mold for Chinese New Year, because it was the year of the rabbit. I made this mold specifically for my Chinese New Year videos. Yeah, it has got surface bubbles. Now, I'm putting this down to the fact that the mold is really cold. Like, it's so chunky, the walls are so thick, really no heat got in there. So on first glance, very similar to January's video. It looks very cloudy, very foggy. The surface bubbles are real. Like, they're so real. I wasn't sure at this point if I was going to be able to even save this piece. The disappointment was real. Like I said, I'm not very good at deep pours, but One day I will be, so it's all okay. I'm just carving off the rest of those bunny tail stalks just so that I've got a nice flat bottom on this rabbit. And then the next step for me was to admit defeat and start the sanding process. Now, hopefully you can see what I'm talking about when I say surface bubbles. Under the chin is a massive problem. You can see them all here. Thousands of micro pores under the chin of this rabbit. Yeah, I was not happy, but I was just like, come on, Claire, you can do it. If you know me, I love to sand. That was a joke. If you know me, I detest sanding. It's my least favorite thing to do on the planet Earth. I did decide to start with a really high grit. What I didn't want was to take huge chunks out of my resin, and I started with a 1200 grit. So the higher the number, the smoother the finish. What I did at first was use this wet dry. So I just cut it up into smaller, manageable chunks of paper, got my cup of water, and it was time to sand. Now, when I say sand, I mean sand. I spent about an hour. I could have spent 4 hours, but I spent around an hour going over this entire rabbit with my 1200 grit, adding water the whole time. So I was adding water, sanding, adding more water, sanding, and it just felt, to be honest, like I was not getting anywhere. I really wasn't getting anywhere. I think the grit was too high. I really needed to start with a much lower grit. Like, get brutal, get right in there, get stuck in there and rip the surface of this piece. I did use this lollipop stick at one point because I thought, do you know what, my hands are hurting. I need a tool. I need something to be able to hold this paper properly. So I did wrap it around a lollipop stick, but honestly, I could still see all of the bubbles that were still there when I demolded. So I completely changed tactic. I went out into my shed and I grabbed my sanding tool. I grabbed a much lower grit and I decided I'm going to start at the bottom. This isn't as low as you can go, but I went down to 180 grit. Oh my gosh, I knew at this point, you can see the difference. You can see how much I am taking off of this rabbit. But I have to be honest, the best way to sand and get your resin back up to a polished shine is to start low and work your way through the grits. But guys, I don't have hours, okay? I don't have hours. So I spent about 30 minutes sanding this thoroughly with a 180. I did sand this dry, so I was wearing a mask, like a dust mask. You don't want to inhale that because I wasn't using any water at this point. I gave up at this point. This is the thing. I need to grow up. I've said it in previous videos. To get the best outcome, you need to plow the time. You need to give the time and dedicate. I could have dedicated a whole day to this rabbit. However, I couldn't. I just couldn't do it. So look at this. Oh my gosh. After I spent an hour with the 180, I went back in with a 240. I then ramped it up to an 800 and then I went back up to the 1200. This was to give me as smooth a surface as possible for the resin rub. And oh my goodness, I'm so glad I did. Compared to what this looked like when I very first took it out of the mold, this is 100 times better. I was so happy I persevered. You can still see bubbles. You can still see underneath the bum, underneath the chin. You can still see all of those micro pores. And honestly, I think I would need to sand this back by about 1 millimeter to get rid of those. So I decided I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to rub it. I'm going to rub the rabbit and I'm going to just keep on rubbing a layer of resin over this surface. Now, we have sanded the entire surface, so theoretically speaking, this resin rub should cling. It should cling, it should stick, it won't just pour off, it will stay in place, revealing the most beautiful bunny tails within the bunny, and I just love it. I'm so glad I took some time Like I said, I could have taken longer, but I didn't have it in me, guys. I got hungry, and it's game over when I'm hungry. So I just went. Make sure you have got gloves on your hands and wear your mask throughout. I'm seeing so many of you guys not wearing a respirator. What is going on? Please protect yourself. So yes, my gloves are on, my respirator is on. I am rubbing the life out of this rabbit. Now, I don't know at this point if I'm being strong enough, if the resin is actually going down in to all of those pores, but I know at this point I feel like I've done my best to bring this back to some kind of life. So I just spend time rubbing under the chin, and yet you can still see 100 micro bubbles. I just didn't know what this was going to turn out like, if I'm honest. The next step for me, like you saw a few seconds ago, I'm actually gonna put this in a base. I'm gonna give it a base, like a little kind of meadow, like the rabbit is sitting in a meadow contemplating life. and why the person who made it just can't be bothered to sand for days. But yeah, I did decide this is going to have a base. Now what that's going to do, that's going to allow the rabbit to just sit pretty in a little garden meadow. But B, it's going to allow me to pour even more resin over the surface of the rabbit. And I know that that resin is not just going to be wasted. It kind of hurts me when I see resin just poured over these pieces, and loads and loads of resin is just coating the worktop. We don't want that. We want to save as much resin as possible. So just before I sit the rabbit down, I'm going to give it one more quick rub with my hands, gloved hands. Then I'm going to sit the rabbit down into its little meadow, because I just think it's going to be so cute when it's finished. And once I've done that, then it's time to pour even more resin over the top of the rabbit. And I know that the coaster that this rabbit is sitting in, it's got room. It's got room to hold more resin. It's got the capacity to handle a lot more resin at this point. So I'm not too worried about spill off. I'm not too worried about wasting copious amounts of resin trying to get this rabbit coated. The next step for me, once I finish pouring all of my resin that I made up, which wasn't very much, by the way, once I finished coating the rabbit, it was time to get out my heat gun and just give it a real long blast with the heat gun, just to diminish, is that the word? Just get rid of any surface bubbles that will have formed in the process of me pouring my clear resin down over the rabbit. I knew that a heat gun would be absolutely fine. We don't have to worry about the mold. I'm not going anywhere near that silicone mold at the bottom. And that was it. At this point, I loved it. Now you can see in the coaster where the resin has built up. This is all of the excess resin that I've poured over my rabbit. And I figured, you know what, let's just take this to the next cuteness level. We are sitting him in a meadow, or her. We're sitting them in a meadow. So we might as well put some little flowers down into the grass as well. Now, I've had these flowers a long while. I just haven't used them. I'm not really a bright flowery kind of girl. You very rarely see me use flowers like this in my projects, but this needed it. This needed a cutesy little field, just very Easter, very cute, very fluffy, and just lovely. I was toying with the idea of just putting them straight in, and then I thought actually no, because the surfaces might still be dry and flaky and then they'll just break off. So they really did need to be reinforced with resin as well, just to make sure that on demold they are fully solid. And honestly, I just shoved them in. Like, I just used my silicone tool, coated them fully in resin, and just shoved them down into the field that the rabbit is sitting on. And of course, you know me guys, I couldn't stop there. I had to add some little stones. I've got these gorgeous little garden stones from the garden centre. They are decorative stones for your home vases. Like if you've got a vase of flowers or anything like that, you can put these in the bottom and make it look pretty. I've just coated these in resin as well, just using a gloved hand, and again I'm just shoving them down into the little meadow that the rabbit is sitting on, and I love it. Like, guys, you know me, I've never proclaimed to create anything with utter 100% perfection, but just taking that bit of time to try and save this rabbit, bring it back to life, try and get some sort of clarity in the surface of that resin so we can really see those bunny tails. So happy I did it. I left this overnight on my heat mat with that plastic bowl over the surface like you saw, and guys, I'm so happy. I am so I love her so much. She is not perfect, absolutely not. She still has bubbles under the chin, but don't we all? Like, if you could see my chins right now, me and the bunny, we've got a lot in common. But demolding the coaster was simple. She now has a perfect little stand, and she's gonna sit happy and proud despite the continuation of those bubbles in her ears and her chin. But you know what, compared to what she was in the first place, she is just remarkable. She's so much better. Taking that time to sand, yes, I could have really sanded her for a few hours, guys. I didn't have it in me. My hands started to hurt. I just need some hand exercises to get me better at that. But the bunny tails, how pretty are the bunny tails? I love it. I absolutely love it. And this is what she's looking like the next day. So beautiful. We do have air bubbles caught and trapped in amongst those bunny tails, but that's okay. I actually did make a Cadbury's mini egg bird's nest, guys. It was a disaster. I cannot show the video because it's just crumbly and it was an actual mess. The mini eggs held up real well, but the inside of my piece, it was damaged beyond repair. The bubbles took over and therefore I won't be creating a video. However, I knew when I demolded this bunny that because the inside was okay, I knew I would spend time trying to make the outside just as okay to bring this piece to life. And I just think it's the cutest little thing in the world. Will I be rushing to use my mold again? Probably not until I have a pressure pot. I did say that 2023 was the year that I'm going to be getting a pressure pot, and thank you so much, because somebody actually did send me an Amazon voucher from YouTube to put towards the pressure pot, guys. So I will be getting that this year, and I think then this mold will work so much better. Because it's a handmade mold, I do seem to keep getting these surface bubbles. I just think it's really cold in there, you know, it's really cold in there, and it gives you a foggy resin result because it's not hot. Anyway, moving on. I love her. Close up of the bunny tails. How gorgeous are these? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you so much if you are still here. We're nearly 18 minutes in for my first Easter video, and if you are still here, do not forget this Saturday, 1st of April 2023 is the open invite Easter collaboration. The information is up on my community tab on YouTube and over on Instagram. Hopefully you all put it in your diaries when I told you to, and I look forward to seeing all of your work on Saturday, 1st of April. That includes YouTube videos and Instagram and TikTok using the hashtag. All information will be found on my community tab, so it's not too late to take part. You've still got a few days. I cannot wait for Saturday. I hope you've really enjoyed this rabbit because I just think she is the most adorable deep pour that I've done. I really do love her despite her flaws, but you know what, we've all got flaws, so we'll forgive it. I appreciate you all massively. If you are still here, please do not forget to hit that thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Do you know, like 80% of my views come from people who are not subscribed? Can you imagine if they just hit that subscribe button? I appreciate you all massively, especially if you are here with me in the live chat. Guys, you know you rock my world. Like, I don't know how you guys join me every single Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, but I massively appreciate you all, and I need you to know that. And I'm so close to 90k. I'm so close to 90k, I could barely breathe. Like, I actually think I'm gonna reach 100k this year, and even just thinking about it makes me want to cry. Anyway, enough talking from me, because yeah, enough talking from me. I'll see you all in my next Easter video, which will be Saturday, and that's the collaboration. Bye.
Yesterday there was sun and there was rain. sparkly shimmer on our skin, restoring everything within. Oh, dreamy, breezy we go, easy, easy on our tiptoes, undercover agents of the other, beyond gravel, beyond all. Hand in hand, building castles out of sand, reaching for the grand.